Namyo Horenge Kyo, Namyo Horenge Kyo, Namyo Horenge Kyo.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of this week's doubleheader, the Bachelorette recap for episode number 6. This episode for me was very much of a filler episode. Really, all that went on was just a ton of eliminations and really kind of set everything up for the last few episodes to come, which are now only going to include the last 6 guys. We're finally down to the final 6. And then of course, after that, the final 4 is when it gets really interesting with the hometown dates. Not a whole lot went on in this episode. It was really all about kind of letting the audience know who Rachel was just not feeling and seeing them exit. The first 5 minutes of the episode were the best for me because within the first 5 minutes, Lee got the boot. Thank the Lord. The craziest part of Lee's elimination though didn't have anything to do with Lee. It was about Kenny. Rachel dismisses Lee and she takes Kenny's hand and they walk back to the helicopter for them to now go off and have pretty much a one-on-one date. The 2-on-1 has now become a 1-on-1. But here comes Kenny saying, I gotta say something, I gotta finish this, I gotta get this off my chest. He goes back to where Lee's sitting to argue with him one last time. And I'm not gonna lie, what I was praying for that didn't happen. I wanted Rachel to sit in that helicopter and get more and more angry, waiting for Kenny to say whatever he had to say to Lee, to the point of telling the pilot, you know what, up, let's go. I was waiting for that to happen. I was praying that that is how Kenny would get his elimination. Rachel would just be so enraged that instead of Kenny focusing on her, he's going back and forth with Lee. Still, I was waiting for her to tell the pilot to take off, and the next scene would have been Kenny going. That would have been so fantastic. I wish that had happened. But later on in the episode, Kenny ends up getting the boot anyway, so who cares? We have a pretty quick rose ceremony where we see Josiah and Anthony get eliminated. And Josiah, it was your time to go, especially after that disrespectful ass comment that he made. Did you catch that?
If she doesn't give me a rose, there's something wrong with her brain.
I was so happy after that comment to see him go. Anthony, he never had a chance. After he had that one-on-one with Rachel way back when, she's never talked to the man since, so of course he had to go. So after the rose ceremony and the eliminations, the rest of the guys and Rachel go off to Denmark. Now in Denmark, we see Eric finally get the one-on-one that he's been whining about wanting for forever. Nothing spectacular happened on the day. They did a little hot tub thing. They went to some amusement park. It was all very blah for me. I really didn't care for the date. The best part was the dinner, where that's when everybody pours their heart out, and Eric's no different. He did talk about how he's never been in love. He grew up not really experiencing a whole lot of familial love, especially from his mother. So he is really, you know, excited to see where things are gonna go with Rachel. So at the end of the date, Eric does receive a rose. So good for him. He is one of the final 6. Next is a group date. Again, you guys already know, I don't care for these group dates. All the cutesy, weird, interesting activities that they get to do, I couldn't care less about. I'm in it for the romance and the connection and seeing 2 people fall in love. So they did some boating, some rowing on a Viking boat. Then they went and had some Viking fighting match. But one interesting part that did happen, remember how in previous episodes they were hyping up some alleged physical fight between Lee and Kenny, and that's apparently how Kenny ended up getting the gash on his eye that, you know, they've been showing over and over again. It actually happened during the damn Viking fight. There was a final showdown between Kenny and Adam, and they were, you know, kind of going at it and kind of fell into each other, and they both got cuts on their face. So that had nothing to do with the Kenny and Lee drama. It was very innocent, but of course, you know, ABC had to hype it up and edit it in a way to make it look like it was related to the Kenny and Lee drama when it really wasn't. So now the group date activity is over, so we move into the little mini one-on-ones that Rachel has, where she pulls each guy to the side to chat a little bit. And first is Brian, and this was probably one of the most intense mini one-on-ones that she's had, because they went deep. They talked about the fact that they both live in different states and how would that work if they ended up together. They talked about their families. So it was pretty deep, very intimate conversation between Rachel and Brian, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because he is definitely making it to the Final Four. Now Will and Eric sit down and have a mini one-on-one date together. Will and Eric sit down and chit chat about the fact that Will typically dates white chicks. I am not one least bit surprised. So next, Rachel has a little sit down with Peter. They talk a little bit, they kiss a little bit. Then after that, she has a couple of other little mini one-on-ones with a couple other guys that I totally ignore because there was no heat, no excitement, no interesting conversation that went on with anyone else. Then now we come to Rachel and Kenny sitting down and having a little chit chat. And the result of this chit chat ends with Kenny being eliminated. And I thought that Rachel really tried to be a true G and make it seem like she was, you know, having a difficult time accepting what she knew she had to accept, which is letting Kenny go off into the sunset back to Vegas and his daughter, because he's been so heartbroken and missing her so much, and she's made this great sacrifice to send him home to be with his daughter and not have him here. We all know Kenny was never in the running. He's a great guy, a beautiful father. Kenny's a great guy, but he's just not the guy for Rachel. So everybody comes back into the room. Rachel gives out the group date rose and it goes to Peter. Now it's time for Will to finally have his one-on-one with Rachel, and they end up going across the street to Sweden. So their one-on-one date is in Sweden, and I thought Rachel and Jack's date on Monday night was cringy. That was pretty cringy, but this date with Will definitely takes a very close second place spot for being cringy as well. They really didn't have much to say to each other. They had some moments when they were just standing there and there was this weird silence between the two of them. And, you know, Rachel talked about it in the confessionals, and I knew from the moment that the date started, it was doomed, because every time Rachel has talked about certain men in a certain way, the date never ends up going that well and things have never really progressed. And Peter called it in the last episode when he said, "You're very easy to read." He was bang on. Rachel is very easy to read. When she's not feeling you, she lets it be known. I think she does her best to try to stay open-minded and really give herself and the guy a chance, but I think it's really been well established from episode 1 who she's most into, and that's not Will. So the date goes on, they finally get to the end, and Rachel decides this is the end for Will and he's eliminated. Very shortly after that, they all come together again for another rose ceremony, and only one person this time gets eliminated, and it's Alex. I know Rachel and Alex were never going to end up together. He was never going to get that final rose, but he's fine. And Rachel is so selfish. She couldn't have left the man on the show for another episode or two so we can get some nice eye candy. She got rid of him and kept Adam and Matt. So I was really salty about that. I know that she didn't have a great connection with him, but I mean, come on, Rachel, you could have thought about the viewers. But anyway, Alex is gone, and that is the end of the episode. There's only 6 guys left, and I cannot wait for the final 4. My prediction is Peter, Brian, Dean, and Eric. And Matt and Adam, you guys are gonna be probably going home on the next episode. It's beyond me why you're still even there, but those are my picks for the final 4, and I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen on these hometown dates. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more, and I'll see you for the next Bachelorette recap. Bye.